I thought I knew what humiliation felt like until my own wife introduced me to her investors as security. While I stood there in a $1,000 suit, wearing the wedding ring she pretended didn't exist. For 3 years, I played the invisible husband at her fancy galas, watching her text another man right in front of me, letting rich strangers treat me like hired help while she smiled and said nothing. They called me her bodyguard, her driver, anything but what I actually was, until the night I decided to show them exactly who Marcus Reed really is. What happened next at that investor gala changed everything, and let me tell you, some truths are worth destroying a marriage for. But the real shock wasn't what I exposed about her affair. It was what happened when I finally stopped being invisible and claimed my power back. If you're watching this from your phone right now, hit that subscribe button and tell me what city you're from, because this story of betrayal and quiet revenge is just getting started. Marcus Reed wiped the grease from his hands as he watched his wife step out of their black SUV. Even at 7:45 in the morning, Evelyn Hart looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. Her blonde hair was pulled back perfectly, and her business suit probably cost more than most people made in a month. The Westwood Bistro was already busy with the breakfast crowd. Marcus held the door open for her, catching the smell of coffee and fresh pastries. This was their Tuesday routine, breakfast before he dropped her at the office and headed to his garage. "Table for two," Evelyn told the hostess, who led them to a spot by the window. Marcus was studying the menu when he heard a voice behind him. "Excuse me, Miss Hart?" They both turned. A man in an expensive suit stood there with a nervous smile. Marcus recognized him as one of Evelyn's clients, some tech guy with too much money and not enough sense. "Mr. Peterson," Evelyn smiled back. "How nice to see you. I wanted to thank you again for the investment meeting last week. Your security here made sure everything went smoothly." Peterson nodded toward Marcus. "Very professional." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He looked at Evelyn, waiting for her to correct the man, to say something, anything. Instead, she just smiled wider. "We aim to please." Peterson walked away, and Marcus stared at his wife across the small table. The same woman who said, "I love you," every morning. The same woman who had stood with him in a tiny Vegas chapel 3 years ago and promised to be his partner in everything. "Eve," he said quietly. "What?" She was already checking her phone, scrolling through messages. "Why didn't you tell him I'm your husband?" She looked up, but only for a second. "Marcus, you know how these people are. The market isn't ready for complications." Complications, like their marriage was some kind of problem to solve. Her phone lit up with a text. Marcus could see the letter V at the top of the screen, followed by "Meet?" "Who's V?" he asked. Evelyn quickly turned the phone face down. "Just work stuff. You wouldn't understand." The words hit him like a punch to the chest. 3 years of marriage, and she still talked to him like he was too stupid to understand her world. They finished breakfast in silence. Outside, Marcus opened the passenger door of the SUV for her, just like he always did, just like good security would. The ride to her downtown office building was quiet except for the sound of her fingers tapping on her phone. Marcus watched the city wake up around them. People heading to work, kids waiting for school buses, regular folks living regular lives. "Same time Thursday?" she asked as he pulled up to the Heartlink building. "The board dinner?" "Right. I'll have Nora add you to the list as protection." Protection. Not as her husband, not as her date, as hired help. Marcus watched her walk into the building without looking back. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, and the security guard at the front desk nodded respectfully. She belonged there. He was just the driver. By 10 o'clock, Marcus was back in his element. The garage smelled like motor oil and metal, sounds he found comforting. This was his world, a place where things made sense, where problems had solutions you could fix with your hands. "How's the princess?" Luis asked, sliding out from under a Honda Civic. Luis was Marcus's best mechanic and one of the few people who knew about the marriage. "She's fine," Marcus said, but his voice gave him away. "Still treating you like the help?" Marcus didn't answer. He opened the hood of a Ford pickup and lost himself in the engine. Here, he was respected. Here, people called him by his name and meant it. The day passed quickly. Marcus fixed a transmission, helped a single mother with a rattling exhaust, and taught his youngest mechanic, Tino, how to change brake pads properly. These people trusted him. They brought their problems to him because they knew he would take care of them. At 8:30 that night, Marcus walked into the penthouse kitchen where Evelyn was making tea. The space was huge and modern, with marble counters and windows that looked out over the city. It was beautiful, but it never felt like home to Marcus. "We need to talk," he said. She sighed like he was bothering her. "About what?" "About you calling me security. About letting people think I'm your bodyguard." "Marcus, we've been over this. It's just easier this way." "Easier for who?" "For everyone." She set her mug down harder than necessary. "Do you know what would happen if word got out? The rumors, the questions about why I married beneath my station?" Beneath her station. The words hung in the air between them like poison. "I'm not asking you to shout it from the rooftops," Marcus said carefully. "I'm asking you to not lie about who I am." "I'm not lying. I'm just managing the situation. By calling me your security guard? By protecting what we've built." Marcus looked around the kitchen, at the expensive appliances, the art on the walls, the life that Evelyn had built. Not what they had built together, what she had built and what she allowed him to visit. "What if I asked you to stop?" he said. Evelyn's face softened for just a moment. She walked over and put her hand on his arm. "Marcus, you know I love you, but the business world is complicated. Give me time to figure out the right way to handle this." "How much time?" "I don't know. Just trust me, okay? It's just for now." Just for now. He'd been hearing that for 2 years. Marcus nodded because he didn't know what else to do, because he loved her, even when she made him feel invisible, because somewhere deep down, he still believed she would choose him when it mattered. "Okay," he said, "but I need you to know something. If you call me your bodyguard again, especially in front of people who matter to you, we're done." She blinked, surprised by the firmness in his voice. "Marcus, I mean it, Eve. I'm your husband, not your employee. I won't pretend to be anything else." For a moment, she looked like she might argue. Then she nodded. "Okay," she said. "I understand." But as Marcus headed upstairs to shower, he caught her checking her phone again. The screen lit up with another message from V. He pretended not to see it, just like he pretended not to notice how she smiled when she read it, just like he pretended that "just for now" hadn't already lasted 2 years. The next morning, Marcus was up early, getting ready for another day at the garage. The apartment was quiet. Evelyn had already left for an early meeting. He made coffee and stood by the big windows, looking out at a city that knew nothing about him except that he fixed cars. His phone buzzed with a text from Luis. "Stop by early. Got something to show you." Marcus smiled. At least someone wanted to include him in something. He grabbed his keys and headed out, not knowing that tomorrow night's board dinner would change everything, not knowing that Evelyn had already confirmed him on the guest list, not as Marcus Reed, her husband of 3 years, but as protection Marcus Reed, not knowing that someone named Victor Hale would be there and that Victor Hale had been sending those V messages to his wife's phone. Marcus drove through the morning traffic, singing along with the radio, thinking about brake pads and oil changes and all the simple things that made sense in his world. He had no idea that in 24 hours, nothing would make sense anymore. But somewhere deep in his chest, in a place he tried not to examine too closely, Marcus Reed was getting tired of being invisible. And tired men, eventually, find their voice. Wednesday evening arrived gray and drizzling. Marcus stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie for the third time. The black suit fit him well. Evelyn had bought it for him last Christmas, though she'd never said where they might go together that would require formal wear. Ready? Evelyn called from the bedroom. Marcus took one last look at himself. In this suit, he could pass for anything. Executive, lawyer, businessman. But tonight, he was protection. The drive downtown was quiet. Evelyn scrolled through emails while Marcus navigated the traffic. The rain made everything look gray and blurry, like the whole world was slightly out of focus. Remind me who's going to be there? Marcus asked. The usual board members, some potential investors. Victor Hale is flying in from San Francisco. Marcus had heard that name before. The venture capital guy? He's interested in our expansion plans. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it quickly, then put it face down in her lap. Marcus caught a glimpse of the screen before she flipped it. Same V contact. Same quick smile when she read the message. They pulled up to the Meridian Club, a place where parking valets wore bow ties and the doorman knew everyone by name. Marcus had been here before, always in the same role, invisible guardian, professional shadow. Mr. Reed, the hostess said when they walked in. She checked her list. You're listed as protection for Miss Hart. Miss Hart, not Mrs. Reed. Marcus glanced at Evelyn, but she was already scanning the room for familiar faces. The club's main dining room was all dark wood and crystal. Men in expensive suits stood in small groups, drinks in hand, talking about money in voices just loud enough to sound important. Their wives wore jewelry that could pay Marcus's rent for a year. Evelyn, a silver-haired man approached them with open arms. You look radiant as always. Thank you, James. This is Marcus, my security. The word hit Marcus like a slap. After yesterday's conversation, after her promise. James barely glanced at him. Of course. Well, shall we find our table? Victor should be here any moment. As they walked across the room, Marcus felt the familiar sensation of being a ghost. People stepped around him without really seeing him. Conversations paused when Evelyn approached, then resumed as if Marcus wasn't there. At their assigned table, Marcus remained standing while the others sat down. This was the dance he knew. They talked, he watched. They belonged, he protected. Evelyn Hart. The voice came from behind them. Marcus turned to see a man in his mid-30s approaching their table. He was handsome in an expensive way. Perfect hair, perfect teeth, suit that probably cost more than Marcus's car. Victor, Evelyn said, standing to greet him. Her smile was brighter than Marcus had seen it in months. Victor Hale, the man behind the V messages. So good to see you again, Victor said, taking her hand and holding it just a second longer than necessary. It's been too long, Evelyn replied. Again? When had they met before? Victor's eyes shifted to Marcus, and his smile became something else entirely, something colder. And you must be the help, Victor said. His voice was friendly enough, but there was an edge underneath. I have to say, you're a bit imposing for a driver. I'm not a driver, Marcus said evenly. Oh? What then? Marcus looked at Evelyn. This was her moment, her chance to correct Victor's assumption, her chance to keep her promise from yesterday. Marcus handles my security, she said. The words landed like stones in Marcus's chest. He stared at his wife, the woman who had promised to change, who had sworn she understood, and watched her choose the lie again. Victor chuckled. Security? Of course. Well, I suppose even tech executives need to be careful these days. Crime is everywhere, isn't it? Especially in certain neighborhoods. The racial undertone was subtle but unmistakable. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Excuse me, Victor continued, his voice taking on a mocking friendliness. I hope you don't mind me saying, but you seem a bit overdressed for security work. Most bodyguards I know prefer clothing that allows for movement. But I suppose when you're working in nice places like this, you want to fit in. Try to look the part. Each word was chosen carefully, each word designed to remind Marcus exactly where Victor thought he belonged. I'm sure Marcus is very good at his job, Evelyn said quickly, but she didn't meet Marcus's eyes. Oh, I'm sure he is. Probably very attentive. Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then at Evelyn. Would you excuse us for just a moment? I have some quick investor updates I'd like to run by you. Privately. Of course, Evelyn said. Marcus, we'll just be on the terrace for a few minutes. Marcus watched them walk away together, watched Victor place his hand on the small of his wife's back as they stepped outside, watched Evelyn laugh at something Victor whispered in her ear. The other people at the table continued their conversation about market trends and profit margins. Marcus stood behind Evelyn's empty chair, invisible again, and stared out the rain-streaked windows at the terrace where his wife was having a private conversation with a man who had just spent 5 minutes putting Marcus in his place. His phone buzzed. A text from Luis. How's the fancy dinner? Remember who you are. Marcus almost smiled. Luis was right. He knew who he was. The question was whether Evelyn did. 20 minutes later, Evelyn and Victor returned. They were both laughing about something, and Evelyn's cheeks were flushed. She looked happy in a way Marcus hadn't seen in months. Sorry about that, she said to the table. Business, you know how it is. The dinner continued. Marcus listened to conversations about investments and acquisitions, about people and places he would never be part of. Every now and then, someone would glance at him and quickly look away, as if acknowledging him might break some unspoken rule. During dessert, Victor's phone lit up on the table. Marcus could see part of the message notification. Rooftop later? Victor quickly grabbed the phone, but not before Marcus caught Evelyn's watch lighting up with what looked like the same message. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. He thought about all the late meetings, all the investor calls that seemed to happen at odd hours, all the times Evelyn came home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't his. The dinner ended at 10:30. In the valet circle, Marcus waited by their car while Evelyn said goodbye to the other guests. He watched Victor shake hands with the men and kiss the women's cheeks in that casual way rich people had. When Victor reached Evelyn, the goodbye lasted longer. A hug that seemed too familiar, words spoken too quietly for anyone else to hear. Marcus checked his watch. 10:40 p.m. Ready to go home? Evelyn asked, walking over to where he stood. What about the rooftop? She froze. What rooftop? The message Victor sent, I saw it on his phone. I have no idea what you're talking about. But her voice was different, higher, the way it got when she was lying about something. Evelyn, can we just go home? I'm tired. Marcus drove her back to the penthouse in silence. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet and shining. At every red light, he glanced over at his wife. She stared out the passenger window like she was seeing something he couldn't. When they reached the building, Marcus walked her to the door. Aren't you coming up? She asked. I need to return the car to the garage. Insurance thing. It wasn't true, but he needed to drive, needed to think. Okay, see you later. She kissed his cheek, a quick, distracted kiss that felt more like habit than affection. Marcus watched her walk into the building, then got back in the SUV. Instead of heading to the garage, he found himself driving through the quiet streets, past the 24-hour diners and the late-night laundromats, past the places where real people lived real lives. He ended up parked across the street from the Meridian Hotel where Victor was staying, the same hotel where Evelyn had claimed to have investor meetings on more than one occasion. At 11:03 p.m., a Blacktown car pulled up to the hotel entrance. Evelyn stepped out. Marcus sat in the dark SUV, rain starting to fall again, watching his wife of 3 years walk into another man's hotel. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. On the dashboard, his phone lit up with a text from Evelyn. Investor debrief. Don't wait up. Marcus stared at the message for a long time. Then he took a screenshot. He had no idea that this moment, sitting in a hotel parking lot at 11 o'clock on a rainy Wednesday night, would be the beginning of everything changing. But somewhere in his chest, something that had been sleeping for 2 years was finally waking up, and Marcus Reed was done being invisible. Thursday morning came too early. Marcus had barely slept, tossing and turning while Evelyn's side of the bed stayed empty until nearly 2 in the morning. When she finally slipped in beside him, she smelled like expensive wine and someone else's cologne. He pretended to be asleep. Now, standing in his garage office with a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago, Marcus stared at the screenshot on his phone. Investor debrief. Don't wait up. The timestamp showed 11:03 p.m., the exact moment he'd watched her walk into Victor's hotel. You look like hell, Luis said, poking his head into the office. The princess keep you up late? Something like that. Luis studied his friend's face. In the 3 years they'd worked together, he'd never seen Marcus look this tired, this defeated. Talk to me, man. What's going on? Marcus showed him the screenshot, then told him about the dinner, about Victor's comments, about watching Evelyn disappear into the hotel for 3 hours. Damn, Luis said softly. I'm sorry, brother. I don't even know what I saw. Maybe it really was business. At midnight? In a hotel? Marcus rubbed his face. I need proof, real proof, not just suspicions. What kind of proof? Before Marcus could answer, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Tyler Kim from Heartlink. We met briefly at the dinner last night. Can we talk? It's important. Marcus frowned. Tyler Kim. He remembered now. A young Asian guy, maybe mid-20s, who'd been sitting at the far end of their table. Quiet, nervous looking. Who is it? Luis asked. Someone from Evelyn's company. Says he wants to talk. About what? Marcus typed back. What about? Tyler's response came quickly. About things that don't add up. Meet me tomorrow at 12:15. Food truck behind the Heartlink building. Marcus showed the message to Luis. Could be a trap, Luis warned. Or it could be answers. The rest of Thursday passed in a blur. Marcus fixed engines and changed oil, but his mind kept drifting to hotel timestamps and unanswered questions. Every time his phone buzzed, he hoped it might be Evelyn with some explanation that would make everything make sense again. It never was. That evening, Evelyn came home with takeout from their favorite Thai place. She was trying too hard to act normal, chattering about her day while they ate pad thai from paper containers. How was your day? She asked, twirling noodles around her fork. Fine. Got a lot done at the shop. Good. That's good. The silence stretched between them like a canyon. Marcus wanted to ask about the hotel, about Victor, about why she'd lied, but something held him back. Maybe he was afraid of what she'd say, or maybe he was afraid she'd lie again. I should probably get to bed early tonight, she said after dinner. Big day tomorrow. More investor meetings? She paused, fork halfway to her mouth. A few. Nothing too exciting. Marcus nodded and said nothing. At 9:50 that night, as Evelyn worked on her laptop in the bedroom, Marcus's phone buzzed with another message from Tyler. Meet tomorrow, 12:15. Be careful. Schedules don't match what she's been telling people. Marcus stared at the message for a long time. Then, he set his alarm for 10:30 a.m. He had break work to finish before meeting Tyler, and suddenly, getting answers felt more important than anything else. Friday arrived crisp and clear. Marcus finished the brake job by noon and drove to the food truck alley behind the Heartlink building. The smell of grilled onions and sizzling meat filled the air as office workers grabbed quick lunches. Tyler was waiting by a taco truck, wearing jeans and a nervous expression. He looked even younger than Marcus remembered. "Thanks for coming," Tyler said, glancing around like he expected someone to be watching. "What's this about?" Tyler pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "I work in scheduling. I see everyone's calendars, including your wife's." He handed Marcus the paper. "These are her meetings for the past 3 weeks." Marcus unfolded the printout. It was covered in appointment times and locations. Most of them looked normal: board meetings, client calls, conference rooms, but several entries stood out: late night consults that all seemed to happen around the same time Victor was in town. "Why are you showing me this?" Tyler shifted uncomfortably. "Because you seem like a good guy, and because what's happening isn't right." He pointed to a specific line on the schedule. "Tuesday night, she told the office she was having dinner with the Goldman investors, but the Goldman meeting was canceled that afternoon. I processed the cancellation myself." Tuesday night, the same night Marcus had seen her texting with V at breakfast. And this? Marcus pointed to another entry. "Client dinner with the Morrison Group, except Morrison canceled 2 hours before the meeting. She never updated her schedule." Marcus felt his chest tighten. How many of these are fake? Most of them. All the late night ones, anyway. Tyler looked around again, then leaned closer. "Look, I don't know what's going on between you two, but she's been lying to everyone. Her assistant thinks she's with clients, the board thinks she's networking, and you, I thought she was working late. She's not working, at least not the way she's telling people." Marcus folded the paper carefully and put it in his pocket. "Why are you doing this?" Tyler's face reddened. "Because my mom went through this same thing. Dad cheated on her for 2 years and everyone knew except her. When she finally found out, she said she wished someone had told her sooner. I always regretted not saying anything." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Cheated. Tyler had said the word Marcus hadn't been able to think, let alone speak. "I could be wrong," Tyler added quickly. "Maybe there's some explanation." But they both knew there wasn't. Marcus thanked Tyler and walked back to his truck. His hands shook as he started the engine. He needed more than calendar discrepancies. He needed real proof. He thought about his friend Dev, who worked the front desk at the Meridian Hotel. Dev owed him a favor from when Marcus had fixed his transmission for free. Marcus drove to the hotel and found Dev on break, smoking a cigarette by the employee entrance. "Marcus, what's up, man?" "I need a favor." Marcus explained what he needed. Not anything illegal, just confirmation of what he could already see with his own eyes. Lobby timestamps that were visible to anyone. Parking records that guests could request themselves. Basic information that wouldn't get anyone in trouble. Dev listened without judgment. When Marcus finished, Dev nodded slowly. "Give me an hour." While he waited, Marcus sat in a coffee shop across from the hotel and called his sister Jada. She was at the hospital where she worked as a nurse, but she answered on the second ring. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. Jada always could hear trouble in his voice. Marcus told her everything: the dinner comments, the hotel visits, Tyler's schedule printout. "Oh, Marcus," she said softly, "I might be overreacting. Maybe there's some explanation." "Baby brother, listen to me. You deserve better than maybes. You deserve the truth. What if the truth is what I think it is? Then you deal with it. But you deal with it with facts, not guesses. Get your proof. Then decide what you want to do." An hour later, Dev texted him to come back. In the hotel's employee break room, Dev spread out several papers on the table. "These are lobby entry logs," he said. "Computer system tracks everyone who comes in after 10 p.m. for security reasons. And these are parking receipts. Guests can request copies for expense reports, so it's all legal." Marcus looked at the documents. Clear timestamps showing Evelyn entering the hotel multiple times over the past month. Always late. Always when Victor was registered as a guest. "Elevators go to which floors?" Marcus asked. "Regular guests on floors 3 through 15. VIP suites on 16 and 17. "What floor is Victor Hale on?" 16. Marcus stared at the papers until the numbers blurred together. Black and white proof of what he already knew in his heart. "I'm sorry, man," Dev said. Marcus gathered the documents and thanked his friend. Outside, he sat in his truck and called Jada back. "I have proof," he said. "What kind of proof?" "Hotel records, calendar lies, everything." "What are you going to do?" Marcus looked up at the hotel building, at the windows of the 16th floor. "I don't know yet." "Don't do anything stupid." "I won't. And don't do anything that'll land you in jail." "I won't." "Marcus?" "Yeah?" "Whatever you do, do it smart. She's got money and lawyers. You've got to be smarter." That evening, Marcus spread all the evidence across his kitchen table. Tyler's schedule printout, Dev's hotel records, screenshots of Evelyn's text messages, a timeline that painted a clear picture of betrayal. He thought about confronting her directly, about demanding explanations, about giving her a chance to tell the truth, but then he remembered standing in that club dining room, watching her call him security after she'd promised not to, watching her choose the lie again when it mattered. Some conversations were pointless. Some people showed you who they were through their actions, not their words. Marcus gathered up the papers and put them in a folder. Then he opened his laptop and began planning something that would give him the truth and his dignity in one clean moment. Saturday morning, Evelyn left early for a client brunch that Marcus now knew was fake. He used the quiet time to make one more call. "Jada, I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Next Friday night, can you make sure you're free? I might need my sister." "Marcus, what are you planning?" He looked out the window at the city spread below him. Somewhere out there, Evelyn was probably with Victor, laughing at private jokes and making plans that didn't include her husband. "I'm planning to get my life back." The following Tuesday afternoon, Marcus got the call he'd been expecting. "Marcus?" Evelyn's voice was bright and professional. "I need you to escort me to the Heartlink Gala on Wednesday night. It's a big event. Investors, board members, potential partners. Can you do it?" "As your security?" There was a pause. "As my protection, yes. It's a very important night for the company." Marcus closed his eyes. Even now, even after everything he'd discovered, she was still lying to him. "Of course," he said. "I'll be there." "Thank you. The event starts at 7. Can you pick me up at 6:30? I'll be ready." After he hung up, Marcus sat in his garage office and opened his laptop. He had 24 hours to prepare for the most important night of his life. 24 hours to get ready to stop being invisible forever. By Wednesday evening, everything was in place. Marcus had spoken to Tyler, who confirmed that the gala's demonstration booth included a public HDMI input that fed to the main screens. He had prepared a simple presentation, just the facts, laid out clearly and calmly. No shouting, no drama, just the truth, presented in a way that couldn't be ignored or explained away. As he got dressed in his black suit, Marcus thought about all the events he'd attended as Evelyn's shadow. All the times he'd stood silently while people talked around him like he wasn't there. Tonight would be different. Tonight, everyone would see him clearly. Marcus checked his watch. 6:15 p.m. Time to go collect his wife for the last time. The rain had started again, and the city lights reflected off the wet streets like scattered diamonds. Marcus drove through the traffic slowly, savoring these final moments of quiet before everything changed. He had no idea that by tomorrow morning, his marriage would be over and his real life would finally begin. But he was ready for both. Wednesday evening's rain drummed against the windshield as Marcus pulled up to the waterfront venue. The Heartlink Gala was being held at the Pacific Events Center, a sleek glass building that jutted out over the harbor like a modern lighthouse. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Marcus could see people in expensive clothes moving around inside like elegant fish in an aquarium. "It looks perfect," Evelyn said, checking her makeup in the visor mirror. She wore a midnight blue dress that probably cost more than most people's rent, and her hair was swept up to show off diamond earrings that caught the light from the building. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. Marcus wondered if that would make what was coming harder or easier. "I'll be about an hour," she said, gathering her purse. "Just the usual donor presentations and networking." Marcus nodded. He'd heard variations of this lie dozens of times over the past month. Inside the venue, the main ballroom was already filling with guests. Marcus recognized many of the faces from previous events: tech investors, board members, city officials who liked being seen at important gatherings. A jazz trio played softly in one corner while servers moved through the crowd with champagne and appetizers. "Mr. Reed?" a familiar voice called out. Marcus turned to see Nora Vale approaching. Evelyn's head of public relations was a sharp woman in her early 30s who had always been polite to him, though never particularly warm. "Miss Vale, I'm glad you're here tonight. Big crowd, lots of important people." She gestured toward a raised platform at the far end of the room. "The presentation setup is over there if you want to check the sightlines for security purposes." Marcus followed her gaze to where several large screens had been mounted above a demonstration area. Technical equipment was arranged on tables below: laptops, projection systems, and what looked like HDMI switching devices. "Who's handling the tech setup?" Marcus asked. "Tyler Kim from our IT department. Nice kid, very thorough." "Perfect." Marcus had been counting on Tyler being involved. "If you'll excuse me," Nora continued, "I need to make sure the media folks have everything they need." As she walked away, Marcus spotted Tyler near the presentation area, running cables and checking connections. Their eyes met across the room, and Tyler gave an almost imperceptible nod. Everything was ready. Marcus found a position along the wall where he could see the entire room. This was his usual spot at these events, close enough to Evelyn to be protective, far enough away to be invisible. Tonight, though, he was cataloging faces and counting exits. Tonight, he had a different kind of preparation to do. At 7:45, the presentations began. Marcus watched Victor Hale take the stage first, talking about market opportunities and growth potential in that smooth voice that made everything sound inevitable. The audience hung on his every word, nodding at appropriate moments and applauding when he finished. Evelyn went next. She was a natural speaker, confident and commanding as she outlined Heartlink's expansion plans. Marcus had always admired this about her: her ability to hold a room's attention, to make complex ideas sound simple and exciting. He wondered if she put the same effort into lying to him. "And now," Evelyn said as her presentation wound down, "we'll have a brief technical demonstration of our new platform capabilities." This was it. Marcus felt his heart rate pick up as Tyler moved to the control table. The large screens flickered, showing the HeartLink logo and a technical demo title card. Marcus pulled a small USB drive from his pocket and made his way toward the tech area. A few people glanced at him as he moved through the crowd, but most barely registered his presence. Just security doing security things. "Tyler," he said quietly, approaching the control table from behind. Tyler turned, his face pale but determined. "You sure about this?" "I'm sure." Tyler glanced around the room, then nodded toward a laptop connected to the HDMI switcher. Input 3. You'll have full control of the main screens. Marcus plugged in his drive and opened the presentation he'd prepared. It was simple, just a few slides with dates, times, and locations, hotel entry logs, canceled meeting schedules, text message screenshots with timestamps. Nothing dramatic, nothing accusatory, just facts laid out clearly and calmly. The last slide was a single sentence. I'm Marcus Reed, and I'm not security. I'm her husband. You ready? Tyler whispered. Marcus looked across the room at Evelyn, who was chatting with a group of investors near the bar. She was smiling and animated, in her element. This was the world she'd chosen over him. These were the people whose opinions mattered more than his dignity. I'm ready. Tyler's hand moved to the input switch. In 3, 2, 1. The screens changed. The first slide appeared above the platform. Heartlink CEO meeting schedule, past 30 days. Below it, a clear timeline showing canceled appointments and fabricated client dinners. It took a few seconds for people to realize this wasn't part of the planned demonstration. Marcus heard confused murmurs from the crowd as they tried to make sense of what they were seeing. The second slide, hotel entry logs, Meridian Hotel. Timestamps showing Evelyn entering Victor's hotel repeatedly over the past month, always late at night, always staying for hours. The murmurs got louder. Marcus saw Evelyn turn toward the screens, her face going white as she recognized her own schedule. The third slide, screenshots of text messages between V and Evelyn's phone, meeting arrangements, romantic messages, plans made in secret while Marcus waited at home. Now the room was buzzing with shocked whispers. Marcus could see people pointing at the screens, then at Evelyn, then at Victor, who was trying to push his way toward the exit. The final slide appeared. I'm Marcus Reed, and I'm not security. I'm her husband. The room went completely silent. Marcus stepped away from the control table and walked calmly toward the center of the room. Every eye was on him now, not looking past him or around him, but directly at him. For the first time in 3 years, he was completely visible. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying clearly in the quiet space. I apologize for interrupting your evening, but I needed you to know the truth about who I am. Evelyn pushed through the crowd toward him, her face a mask of panic and fury. Marcus, stop, please. I'm stopping, he said gently. I'm stopping pretending to be someone I'm not. I'm stopping lying about our marriage, and I'm stopping letting you call me your security guard. The screens behind him still showed the evidence, dates and times and places that painted a clear picture of betrayal. Marcus didn't need to explain it or elaborate on it. The facts spoke for themselves. This is... Evelyn started, then stopped. What could she say? That the evidence was fake? That the hotel logs were doctored? That 3 years of lies were somehow justified? Instead, she lunged for the laptop, yanking the USB drive from the port. The screens went dark, returning to the Heartlink logo. But it was too late. Everyone had seen what they needed to see. Marcus looked around the room one more time. At the investors who had barely acknowledged his existence, at the board members who had treated him like hired help, at the wealthy donors who had looked through him like he was invisible. They were all staring at him now. Enjoy the rest of your evening, he said. Then he walked out into the rain. Marcus sat in his truck in the venue parking lot, hands shaking as the adrenaline wore off. Through the windows of the building, he could see the party continuing, though the mood had clearly changed. Groups of people stood in tight circles, talking animatedly. He could only imagine what they were discussing. His phone buzzed with a call from Jada. It's done, he said when he answered. You okay? I think so. Yeah, I'm okay. Where are you? Parking lot. I just need a minute. Come to my place. I'll make coffee and we can talk. Marcus started the truck and drove through the quiet streets to Jada's apartment in Culver City. She lived in a small building near the hospital where she worked, the kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names and looked out for each other's kids. Jada was waiting in the doorway when he pulled up, still wearing her scrubs from an evening shift. She wrapped him in a hug that smelled like antiseptic and big sister, love. Tell me everything, she said, leading him into her tiny kitchen. Marcus told her about the presentation, about the look on Evelyn's face, about walking out into the rain while a room full of wealthy people tried to process what they'd just witnessed. How do you feel? Jada asked when he finished. Marcus thought about it. Free, he said finally. Scared, but free. That's normal. You just blew up your whole life. It was already blown up. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. They talked until nearly midnight, about what would happen next, about lawyers and divorce papers, about how Marcus would rebuild his life without Evelyn's money and connections. You've got the garage, Jada reminded him. You've got friends who respect you. You've got family who loves you. That's more than a lot of people have. Marcus nodded, but part of him was already mourning the loss of the woman he'd married 3 years ago. Not the woman who had lied to him and cheated on him, but the woman he'd thought she was. The woman who had made him believe in possibilities he'd never imagined. That woman, he realized now, had never really existed. When Marcus finally got home at 1:30 a.m., the penthouse was dark and empty. Evelyn's car wasn't in the garage. Her phone calls were going straight to voicemail. He made himself a sandwich and sat at the kitchen counter, looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow, everything would be different. Tomorrow, he would have to figure out how to untangle 3 years of shared life. But tonight, for the first time in months, Marcus Reed went to sleep without wondering where his wife really was or who she was really with. Tonight, he knew the truth, and the truth, painful as it was, had finally set him free. Thursday morning arrived gray and quiet. Marcus woke up alone in the big bed, sunlight filtering through curtains that Evelyn had chosen. The penthouse felt different now, less like home, more like a museum of a life that had ended the night before. His phone showed 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most were from numbers he didn't recognize, probably reporters or gossip bloggers who had been at the gala. A few were from coworkers at the garage who had seen news coverage of the event. One was from Evelyn. We need to talk. I'm at Nora's office. Please come. Marcus deleted it without responding. Instead, he made coffee and called Luis. Holy shit, man, Luis said by way of greeting. You're all over the internet. What? Someone filmed the whole thing on their phone. Tech CEO's secret marriage exposed at company gala. It's got like 1 million views already. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He'd wanted the truth to come out, but he hadn't thought about it becoming a viral video. Most of the comments are on your side, Luis continued. People are calling you brave, saying it took guts to do what you did. Brave. Marcus didn't feel brave. He felt exhausted and sad and strangely empty. You coming in today? Luis asked. Yeah, I need to work. I need normal. The garage felt like sanctuary when Marcus arrived at 8:30. His tools were where he'd left them. The smell of motor oil and metal was familiar and comforting. Here, at least, nothing had changed, but the customers treated him differently. Word had gotten around the neighborhood about what had happened at the gala. People who had always been friendly were now looking at him with something like admiration. Saw you on the news? Said Mrs. Patterson, whose Honda he was servicing. Good for you, standing up for yourself like that. You did the right thing, added Mr. Jameson, waiting for an oil change. Man's got to have his dignity. Marcus appreciated the support, but it also made him uncomfortable. He didn't want to be famous for having his marriage fall apart in public. Around noon, Tyler Kim showed up at the garage. I just wanted to make sure you were okay, Tyler said, and to say I'm sorry about how everything went down. You did what I asked you to do. No need to apologize. The company's in damage control mode. Emergency board meeting this morning. Nora's trying to craft some kind of statement. Marcus wiped his hands on a shop rag. What kind of statement? I don't know. Something about personal matters not reflecting professional competence. The usual corporate speak. Tyler looked around the garage. For what it's worth, I think what you did took courage. After Tyler left, Marcus tried to lose himself in engine work, but his mind kept drifting to Evelyn. Was she at the office, dealing with angry investors? Was she with Victor, planning damage control? Was she finally telling the truth about their marriage, or was she still trying to manage the narrative? At 3:45, Marcus looked up from a transmission repair to see a familiar figure in the garage doorway. Nora Vale stood there in her usual professional outfit, looking distinctly out of place among the car lifts and tool benches. "We need to talk," she said. Marcus set down his wrench and followed her outside to the parking area. "Evelyn asked me to give you this," Nora said, handing him an envelope. Marcus took it but didn't open it. "How is she? How do you think? Her marriage just exploded on live video in front of 200 influential people." "Her marriage exploded months ago. Last night just made it visible." Nora studied his face. "You really don't hate her, do you?" "I'm angry. I'm hurt. But no, I don't hate her." Marcus looked at the sealed envelope. "I hate what she did. I hate how she made me feel invisible. But I don't hate her. She wants to see you, to explain." "There's nothing to explain. I saw the hotel logs, the canceled meetings, the text messages. What's left to explain?" "Maybe how she got to the place where she thought lying was easier than telling the truth." Marcus almost smiled at that. "That's the thing about lies, Miss Vale. Once you start telling them, the truth becomes the harder choice." After Nora left, Marcus sat in his truck and opened Evelyn's letter. Her handwriting was neat and controlled, even when her world was falling apart. "Marcus, I know you don't want to see me right now, but I need you to know that what happened with Victor wasn't planned. It wasn't some calculated betrayal. I was lonely and scared, and I made terrible choices. I know that doesn't excuse anything, but I need you to know that I never stopped loving you, even when I was hurting you. Please come home so we can talk. We can figure this out. We always figure things out. E." Marcus read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and put it in his pocket. She was right that they'd always figured things out before, but those had been problems they'd faced together. This time, Evelyn had created the problem by herself, in secret, with another man. Some things couldn't be figured out. Some things could only be survived. Marcus started his truck and drove home to a life that was about to change forever. The penthouse was dark when he arrived, but Evelyn's car was in the garage. She was sitting at the kitchen counter when he walked in, still wearing the clothes from her emergency board meeting. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi. Did you get my letter?" "I got it." They stared at each other across the kitchen island that had served as the centerpiece of so many ordinary moments in their marriage. Breakfast conversations, late night talks about work and dreams and the future they'd thought they were building together. "Can we talk?" she asked. "We are talking. I mean really talk. About what happened. About where we go from here." Marcus pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "Okay, let's talk." Evelyn's hands shook as she poured 2 cups of coffee. Marcus noticed she'd made it the way he liked it, dark with just a touch of cream. Even now, even after everything, she remembered the small details that had once mattered. "I don't know where to start," she said, sliding his cup across the counter. Start with Victor. She flinched like he'd slapped her. Marcus, you wanted to talk, so talk. When did it start? Evelyn stared into her coffee for a long moment. When she looked up, her eyes were red-rimmed and tired. 6 months ago, he was consulting on the expansion project and we started having dinner meetings. Just business at first. Her voice was barely above a whisper. He made me feel important, like my ideas mattered. Your ideas always mattered. Not to the board, not to the investors. They tolerated me because I inherited the company, but they never really respected me. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Victor was different. He listened to me. He made me feel smart and capable and I didn't? You did, but you're my husband. You're supposed to think I'm smart. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. So, you found someone who wasn't supposed to love you, and that made his attention more valuable? That's not. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Evelyn? Help me understand how 6 months of lying to me was really about feeling respected at work. She broke down then, sobbing into her hands. Marcus watched his wife of 3 years fall apart and felt nothing but a distant sadness. 3 months ago, her tears would have destroyed him. Tonight, they just felt like another performance. I was scared, she said through her tears. Scared of the board, scared of the investors, scared of failing at the one thing my father left me. She looked up at him with mascara streaked down her cheeks. And I was scared of you. Of me? Of what you'd think if you knew how weak I really was. How much I was struggling. She reached across the counter toward his hand, but he pulled back. You're so strong, Marcus. So sure of who you are. I didn't want you to see me falling apart. So you hid it from me. You hid everything from me. I was trying to protect you. By calling me your security guard? By pretending we weren't married? By sleeping with another man? Marcus's voice stayed calm, but each word landed like a hammer blow. That's not protection, Evelyn. That's erasure. I know that now. Do you? Because 3 days ago you promised me you'd stop calling me security, and then you did it again at the board dinner. In front of Victor. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I panicked. He was being so awful to you, and I took the easy way out. You always take the easy way out when it comes to me. They sat in silence for several minutes. Outside, the city hummed with its usual evening energy. Cars honking, sirens in the distance, the sound of 8 million people living their lives. Normal people with normal problems that didn't involve secret affairs and public humiliation. What do you want me to say? Evelyn asked finally. I want you to tell me the truth about something. What? If none of this had come out, if I hadn't found the hotel records and the fake meetings, would you have kept seeing him? She hesitated. In that pause, Marcus found his answer. You would have, he said. It wasn't a question. I don't know. Maybe I was confused and you would have kept lying to me, kept making me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong, kept letting people treat me like hired help while you played house with Victor in hotel rooms. Marcus, please. I need you to be honest with me about one more thing. What? Are you sorry you got caught? Or are you sorry you did it? Evelyn opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. She stared at him for a long moment, and Marcus could see her wrestling with the question. Both, she said finally. I'm sorry I hurt you, and I'm sorry everything fell apart so publicly. At least it was honest. Marcus stood up and walked to the big windows that looked out over the city. Down below, life went on. People were going home to dinners and families and relationships built on truth instead of performance. I can't do this anymore, he said without turning around. What do you mean? I mean, I can't keep trying to love someone who's embarrassed by me. I can't keep pretending that hiding our marriage is some temporary business strategy. And I can't compete with men like Victor for my own wife's attention. You don't have to compete. I chose you. Marcus turned around. No, you didn't. You chose Victor for 6 months. You chose your reputation over our marriage for 3 years. You chose everything and everyone except me, right up until the moment I forced the truth into the open. That's not fair. What's not fair is spending 3 years being invisible in my own marriage. Evelyn slammed her coffee cup down, sloshing liquid across the counter. So what? You're just giving up. You're going to throw away everything we built together because I made some mistakes? I'm not throwing anything away. I'm finally admitting what we both know, that what we built wasn't real. Marcus walked back to the counter but didn't sit down. Real marriages don't require one person to pretend they don't exist. We can fix this. I can fix this. I'll make a public statement about our marriage. I'll tell everyone the truth. Now, you want to tell the truth? After it's already been forced out of you? Better late than never. Marcus almost smiled at that. Evelyn, if you'd stood up at that board dinner and introduced me as your husband, we wouldn't be having this conversation. If you'd corrected just one person who called me security, we could have worked through the Victor thing. But you didn't. You chose the lie every single time it mattered. Because I was scared. So was I. I was scared every time someone treated me like I didn't belong. Scared every time you let them do it. Scared that the woman I married was disappearing into someone I didn't recognize. Marcus's voice stayed steady, but she could hear the pain underneath. The difference is, I was scared of losing you. You were scared of being seen with me. Evelyn started crying again, but these tears were different, angrier. So that's it? You're going to punish me forever for making mistakes when I was under pressure? I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. From what? From spending another 3 years waiting for you to decide I'm worth defending. The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Evelyn stared at him, and Marcus could see her trying to find some argument that would change his mind, some promise that would undo 6 months of betrayal and 3 years of public humiliation. She couldn't find one, because there wasn't one. Marcus walked to their bedroom and came back with a small velvet box. He set it on the counter between them and pushed it toward her. "What's this?" she asked, though she already knew. "Your ring. I took it off this morning." Evelyn opened the box with trembling fingers. The diamond caught the kitchen light and sparkled like it was mocking them both. "Marcus, please, don't do this." "It's already done, Evelyn. It's been done for months. I'm just finally admitting it." She closed the box and held it against her chest. "I love you. I know you do. In your way, when it's convenient, when it doesn't cost you anything." Marcus touched her face gently, and she leaned into his palm like a drowning person reaching for shore. "But that's not enough anymore. What if I quit the company? What if we moved somewhere else and started over? You wouldn't be happy, and eventually you'd blame me for making you give up your life. Then what? What do you want from me?" Marcus stepped back and picked up his keys from the counter. "I want you to let me go." "Where are you going?" "To Jada's. I'll come get my things this weekend." Evelyn followed him to the door, clutching the ring box. "Marcus, wait, please. Can't we at least try? Can't we go to counseling or something?" He turned back to look at her one last time. Standing there in her expensive dress with makeup running down her face, holding on to a ring he'd bought with 3 months of garage wages, she looked very young and very lost. "Counseling works when both people want to change," he said gently. "You want me to forgive you. That's different. I do want to change. Then change, but do it for you, not for us. There is no us anymore." Marcus walked out of the penthouse and didn't look back. 3 weeks later, Marcus was living in a small apartment near the marina. It wasn't much: one bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a living room barely big enough for a couch and coffee table. But the windows faced the water, and he could hear seagulls in the morning instead of traffic. The divorce papers had been filed quietly, handled by lawyers who specialized in keeping wealthy people's business out of the tabloids. Evelyn had been generous with the settlement, more generous than she needed to be, which Marcus suspected was her way of apologizing for things she couldn't bring herself to say out loud. He'd used part of the money to buy out Luis's half of a small garage in Venice Beach. It was older and smaller than where they'd worked before, but it was his. The sign outside read, "Reed's Auto Repair," in simple black letters. On a Thursday evening in late March, Marcus was closing up the shop when a familiar car pulled into the lot. Tyler Kim got out of his Honda Civic, looking nervous but determined. "Tyler, what brings you by? I wanted to see how you were doing, and to give you an update on things at Heartlink." They sat on a bench outside the garage, watching the sunset over the Pacific. The air smelled like salt and motor oil, a combination Marcus had grown to love. "How is she?" Marcus asked. "Better, I think. She did that interview with the business magazine, the one where she talked about learning from personal failures and becoming a more authentic leader." Tyler glanced at Marcus. "She mentioned you." "What did she say?" "That you were the strongest person she'd ever known, and that she was sorry it took public humiliation for her to see how badly she'd treated you." Marcus nodded. He'd read the interview. It was honest and well written, and it had probably helped repair some of the damage to Heartlink's reputation. "She's been different at work," Tyler continued. "More real, I guess. She remembers people's names. She asks about their families. She actually seems to care about the answer." "That's good. The board is happy with the turnaround. Stock prices back up." Victor got quietly pushed out of his consulting role. Something about conflicting interests. They sat in comfortable silence, watching surfers catch the last waves of the day. "Do you miss it?" Tyler asked. "The fancy life, I mean." Marcus thought about it. "I miss some things. The view from the penthouse was incredible, and Evelyn made this pasta dish that was amazing." He smiled. "But I don't miss feeling invisible in my own life." "Any regrets about how it all went down? About the public nature of it?" "Sometimes. I probably could have handled it more privately." Marcus shrugged. "But then again, private conversations weren't working. Sometimes the truth needs an audience to be believed." After Tyler left, Marcus walked along the beach. The evening joggers were out, along with couples holding hands and families with kids chasing seagulls. Normal people living normal lives, visible to each other in all the ways that mattered. His phone buzzed with a text from Jada. "Dinner Sunday? I'm making that casserole you like." Marcus smiled and typed back, "I'll be there." As he walked back to his apartment, Marcus caught his reflection in a storefront window. He looked different than he had 6 months ago. Lighter somehow. More solid. Like a man who knew exactly who he was and where he belonged. For the first time in 3 years, Marcus Reed was living a life where he didn't have to pretend to be someone else. And that, he realized, was worth more than all the penthouses and fancy dinners in the world. The next morning, as he opened Reed's auto repair for another day of honest work, Marcus saw a familiar car parked across the street, a black SUV with tinted windows, idling at the curb. Evelyn's car. Marcus didn't wave or walk over to say hello. He simply unlocked his shop, turned on the lights, and began his day. If she wanted to watch him live his life, that was her choice. But he wouldn't perform for her anymore. After about an hour, the SUV drove away. It came back the next day, and the day after that. Marcus never acknowledged it, but he wasn't surprised when Luis mentioned seeing a woman in expensive clothes asking questions about him at the coffee shop next door. Or when Mrs. Chen from the dry cleaners said a blonde lady had been asking if Marcus seemed happy. Let her watch, Marcus thought. Let her see what a life lived in the open actually looked like. On Friday evening, Marcus was detailing a customer's car when he looked up to find Evelyn standing in the doorway of his garage, not hiding in her car this time, but actually there, wearing jeans and a simple sweater that made her look more like the woman he'd married than the CEO he'd divorced. "Hi," she said. "Hi. Can we talk?" Marcus set down his polishing cloth and nodded toward two plastic chairs near his office. 5 minutes. She sat down carefully, like she was afraid the chair might break. "You look good." "Thank you." "Happy?" "I am." She studied his face, searching for something. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." "About what?" "About us. About what went wrong. About who I became when I was trying so hard to be perfect for everyone else." Marcus waited. He'd learned the value of silence. "I went to therapy," she continued. "Real therapy, not just damage control sessions with the company shrink. And I realized something." "What's that?" "I spent 3 years being ashamed of loving you when I should have been ashamed of not defending you." The words hit him harder than he expected. He'd been prepared for apologies and promises and desperate attempts to win him back. He hadn't been prepared for clarity. "I'm glad you figured that out," he said quietly. "Too late, I know. For us, yeah, but not too late for you." She smiled sadly. "That's very kind. It's just true. You're not a bad person, Evelyn. You just made bad choices. The worst choice I ever made was letting you walk away." Marcus leaned back in his plastic chair and looked at this woman he'd once loved enough to marry in a Vegas chapel. She was still beautiful, still intelligent and driven and capable of making him laugh. But she was also someone who had spent 3 years teaching him that love without respect was just another kind of performance art. "No," he said finally. "The worst choice you made was calling me security in front of people whose opinions mattered more to you than mine. Everything else just followed from that." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't argue. She'd learned, it seemed, the difference between being sorry and being right. "I should go," she said, standing up. "Evelyn?" She turned back. "I hope you find someone who makes you want to be proud of them, and I hope you let them be proud of you back." She nodded, not trusting her voice, and walked out of his garage into the evening light. Marcus watched her go, then turned back to the car he'd been polishing. It was a classic Mustang, restored with care and patience by someone who understood that some things were worth the effort to make them beautiful again. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister. "Still coming to dinner Sunday? Mom wants to know how many plates to set." Marcus smiled and typed back, "Wouldn't miss it. I'll bring dessert." Outside, he could hear the ocean and the sounds of people living their lives in the open. Inside his garage, surrounded by tools and honest work and the satisfaction of problems that could actually be solved, Marcus Reed felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. He felt completely, perfectly visible, and that was enough. That was everything.